Thank you so much for joining us, Colin Mayers. Truly a pleasure and an honor to have you with us in the studio.
It's a great pleasure to be here, so thank you very much.
So, your research and insights and hypothesis on why corporations are failing us is very interesting and something I think is of great pertinence to companies across the world, including in India. My question is, you've stated very categorically that the problem is the corporation and the answer is not regulation. How have companies and different boards and business leaders reacted to your statement and your book, of course, which states so point blankly that the corporation today is the problem?
There's a wide level of agreement that there's a major problem in our capitalist systems, and there's an understanding that corporations are not serving us well. So a lot of people across the political spectrum, business, academia, agree that something needs to be done about it. What I try to set out in the book is what we should be doing about it.
Sure. Colin, more and more as we talk to multinationals, for instance, a case in point being a Unilever or a Procter & Gamble, right? These companies seem to be very focused on their core values. So you talked about sustainability.
Yes.
Unilever's whole pivot is sustainability.
Absolutely.
And they ensure that in all their communication, be it with their shareholders or it be their customers, they throw that message out. Similarly, for Procter & Gamble, they pivot on everything that they do is purpose-driven.
Yes.
So, this is not something that is new. We've been hearing about, their values for the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years. So would you say that, companies are getting more and more responsible?
Yes, two respects. First of all, Unilever has been saying this for some time, but it's now really risen to the top of the agenda. Paul Polman, the CEO of Unilever, pushes this as being a main feature of Unilever to an extent that was not true a few years ago. And what's particularly interesting is now that many companies realize that the approach that Unilever is taking is the right approach. And what Unilever says is that people don't really just want to make detergents. They don't regard that as a great achievement in their life to do that. They want to do things that are of significance. And what he's doing is to convert it into a company that is significant from the point of view of their customers and their employees. That's what the future employees are going to be looking for.
You made a very significant observation that you said that, we know that the problem is the corporation, but, most people look at this problem as regulation. And that is actually not the answer. But how do you think people will realize this and, go beyond regulation and look at, their own a morality of a corporation and try and project that and really look at self-checks rather than be regulated from the outside?
Regulating institutions and corporations more and more is just failing. We are in the process, for example, of regulating financial institutions, driving them out of doing the things that they should be doing. Banks should be lending to small companies, growing companies. They're doing less and less of that because the regulatory rules say if you lend to small companies, that's risky. So it becomes more expensive. The regulators impose more capital requirements. If we try and tell corporations that they have to look after the environment, what they do is they spend as little as they possibly can to deliver what the government is looking for. That is a bit of a concern.
If you look at regions, across the world, which region do you think is practicing this the best?
I can tell you a region that's making a real headway in this area, and that is the Nordic countries. Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark. They are really pushing this. They're pushing it in the sense of corporations are beginning to take this as being the main focus of their agenda going forward. They have a lot of companies that do this extremely well.
Do you think actually practicing this will also result in these companies being the most profitable? Because only if that, is mapped, will companies have some kind of incentive to follow the route.
You're absolutely right. It's basically enlightened self-interest. One shouldn't regard this as being philanthropy. If it's just philanthropy, companies won't do it. So they have to benefit from it. And the really interesting results that are emerging is that companies that practice sustainability outperform other companies in financial terms, in terms of their share prices over a medium to long term. Over 10, 15, 20 years, sustainability companies perform better than others.
How would you rate Asia, and in particular India, when it comes to, companies displaying morality and, looking at ethics as a very big parameter when they practice business?
Well, I think India's a particularly interesting case. You do have long-term owners. Ownership is mainly in the hands of families that hold for long periods of time. So that long-term perspective is there. Now, India's particularly interesting because the government is trying to push much more of a CSR agenda going forward, so that 2013 Companies Act is really putting the notion of sustainability and broader social interests at the top.
Thank you so much, Colin. This was truly a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.